In honor of this month's book club book, we're going into the dog park. I know, we're going. They know exactly where we are right now, which is why they're full of beans. I'm here in the dog park with Boomer and Demi right now. I'm normally a huge dog park person. I love the dog park, but this one in particular, it has everything you want in a dog park. It has a dog pond, a walking path, which I'm walking on now. It's really great, but the people in this park, I gotta tell you guys, sometimes they drive me nuts. There's a big sign out front that says no children under 8 years old, but there is always families in here that keep their children unattended, and it drives me nuts and it just makes my anxiety go crazy. Why? So today we're here on a Monday afternoon. So far, so good. There's a group of people over there, but it looks like everyone is behaving themselves. So I'm gonna give this whole dog park thing a second chance, especially because this month's book club book is all about the dog park. And he really didn't want to go in the beginning, but he, you know, he did it for his dog, and then it ended up being life-changing for him. So I'm gonna take a little tip from this month's book club book, and we're here in the park. The dogs seem to be enjoying it so far. When we get back, we are gonna talk about the book. Off the Leash is a group portrait of dog people, specifically the strange, wonderful, neurotic, and eccentric dog people who gather at Amory Park overlooking Boston near Fenway Park. It's about author Matthew Gilbert's transformation into one of those dog people with fur on their jackets, squeaky toys in their hands, and biscuits in their pockets. Okay, we've made it back with no incidents. Thank God. Monday afternoon, I think, is the best day to go to the dog park. Today, we're talking about this book, Off the Leash, A Year at the Dog Park by Matthew Gilbert. I'm gonna be rating this book based on the length, the voice of the book, the content in the book, and the cover art. Then I'm gonna tell you guys my yes moments, the moments in this book where I was like, totally get that. I'm gonna tell you the things that I did not like. We're gonna talk about the cast of characters. I'm gonna tell you the cast of characters in my dog walking experience. We can all laugh about that. And then we're gonna go over February's dog book club book so you guys can get all excited for that. Okay, let's get started. The length of this book, I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. It is pretty short. If I'm being honest, I don't have time to read big, long books, and I'm sure you guys don't either, so I appreciate when somebody just like gets right down to the point. I don't really like a lot of fluff in a book. Like, if you're gonna talk about something, just talk about it. You don't have to describe everything to me. So don't get me wrong, sometimes I appreciate that in a book, but in this case, I just want you to get right down to it. So the length of this book was perfect. I did not have a problem at all with finishing it in the 1 month timeline that we had. In terms of the voice of this book, honestly, I really liked his voice throughout it. It was very conversational and friendly. It was like I was just speaking to a friend. I really liked that he made up his own words, and actually in the back of the book, there's a glossary of all the different words and phrases that he used, which I loved. I'm just gonna read a couple to you guys. The poop mime. And what that means is, you do it after your dog poops when others are watching you. See, says your thought balloon as you very conspicuously hold your bag and bend over, moving like a silent film star. I'm a good citizen. I think we've all had a moment where we do the poop mime just so that everybody knows that you're picking up the dog poop. So I really liked that about it. It was really conversational and easy to read, and it was a really nice book to read right before bed when my brain was really tired and I just needed something easy to read. So for the content of this book, that's where I had a little bit of an issue. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 because honestly, I liked it, but it didn't really change my life. There was a lot of fluff in it. He didn't really get to the nitty-gritty of his feelings and the reality of life in a dog park. He kind of started off doing that. Like, he would talk about his own emotional issues and what he was working through, and then he just kind of stopped talking about it. And he kind of went towards talking more about his dog the whole time and the other people in the park, but I would have really liked it if he got right down into the nitty-gritty as opposed to just like grazing over it as he did. Everybody thinks that their dog is the best dog in the world, which they probably are. Dogs are amazing, but he kind of went over the top with it in a way that almost he was deflecting, talking about his own issues and himself, which this is his first book, so it's probably he didn't feel comfortable fully talking about himself, but I would have liked it to be more of a balance, not just always about just the surface stuff. So that's one thing that I would note about this, is it is just kind of a fluffy read. Like, it's just like an enjoyable, light little thing. Cover art, love it. I think this is an adorable cover. It's got dogs on it. If I saw this on a bookshelf, I would definitely pick this book. So I'm thinking that this is Toby, his dog, and I think that that is Bertha, his friend. I'm not gonna spoil the ending in case you haven't read it, but his friend at the end who something happens. So I like that. I think it's really cute. I hope that these are the real dogs and not just dog models, because that just, I was imagining that as them the whole time. 10 out of 10 on the cover art. So now I want to talk about some of my yes moments. So the moments in the book where I was reading and I just thought, I can relate to that. Yeah. Page 22, he talks about having a sterner voice when talking to his dog because he's quite a soft-spoken man. I have this problem all the time. So I'm a very squishy person and I just want all dogs to be happy at all times. And I have a hard time kind of laying any kind of authority or showing them that I'm the leader of the group, because I just want everyone to be happy all the time. So it's one thing that I've always had to work on with dogs and that I'm still honestly working on. Let me know if you're the same, if that's something you're working on. Page 67, poop it forward. I laughed so hard when I saw this part. So it's essentially somebody who will pick up the dog poop of somebody who didn't pick it up. As a way of kind of like paying it forward, but in poop. You wouldn't catch me dead doing that. It's just weird, right? But also I like the idea of it because I think it's kind of sweet. Page 66, the clear bag phenomenon. File it under TMVI, too much visual information. I have always thought this. I hate like clear plastic poop bags. It makes me so uncomfortable to see an owner walking around and I can see the poop and it's kind of like smudged on the side. I just think it's disgusting. So I read that and I was like, thank God somebody feels the same as me. Also, he talks a lot in this book about poop, which I guess when you have a dog and you work with dogs, that is a pretty big topic of conversation. I feel like if you were to find the word that is said the most in this book, it would probably be poop. The owner of pit bulls, it seems, have a very distinct journey with their dogs. People are afraid of them. Issues of trust are in the air. Some, like Brent, are very aware of the public perception. You could see the battle on his face. He seemed weary of the fight. Which is so true. I have this issue every time I go into the dog park with Boomer. He is the most friendliest, nicest dog, but people will just look at him and immediately be afraid or think that he's gonna be attacking them or their dog, and they'll put up these defenses. And honestly, it's one of the things that just turns me off of the dog park so much, because I'm tired of having to have those encounters and to see his spirit being broken when people and other dogs reject him because of who he is. It's just the saddest thing. If you're a pit bull owner, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. On page 197, there is a bulldog meetup at the dog park, and in it, he makes a comment about how bulldogs are everything that Americans deem ugly, yet we love them so much. I've often had this thought because I've noticed that it's always these like really beautiful women who like to have these bulldogs who are like can't breathe, are chunky, have snot and fart all the time, and it's just everything that they would definitely not accept in a man, but yet they want it in their dog. I just think it's the funniest thing to see that. On page 121, he mentions the dog Nazis. So it's people that are so obsessed with dog training and that make everyone else feel bad about the fact that their dogs are untrained. I cannot stand people like this. There was one time in Toronto that I applied to be a dog trainer at this specific facility, and they were so hardcore about their training mentality. Like, it didn't matter how much physical experience you had. They wanted you to be able to recite things from behavior books, as though that were the most important part. Like, for me personally, it's the experience of it and less of can you just regurgitate all this information that's in a book. But there are definitely people like that, and they just drive me nuts. So we already kind of talked about some of the things that I did not like about this book. I didn't like how fluffy it was. I thought it needed a little bit more depth in that department. I didn't like that he acted like his dog was perfect all the time and that he and his dog were always in the right and in this perfect little bubble. I wish he would have got more into his thoughts and feelings about himself as an owner and his dog. He was also so concerned about coming across as the best dog owner or the most considerate dog person in the park. Like, he was so aware of what he would sound like in the book that it almost made it a little bit unrealistic. Like, he kind of had this uppity elitist sort of way of speaking, in that he knew that he was doing everything that he possibly could in the best possible way. I think it would have been a much more interesting book if he would have talked about the moments where he felt like he did something wrong, or he felt like he maybe didn't handle something perfectly. It just seems like in all of the stories that he had, he was always in the right and everyone else was always the one who was wrong. So that's one thing that I didn't really like about it, because I felt like it was a little bit unrealistic. In that whole time you were in the dog park, there had to be a moment where you thought, oh my gosh, I am not the best dog owner right now. Because we've all been there, right? I don't like the way that he talked about the Charlottes. So people who had dogs that had a little bit of issues. No, I don't think that Charlotte handled it properly, but I also think that he was a little bit unforgiving, and it's definitely coming from the experience of someone who's never had to work with a dog who has issues. So I just didn't appreciate how he interacted with other people and held those grudges. I would have liked him to get more into the nitty-gritty of real dog park life, as opposed to this, like, this is how dog parks are. It's lovely, it's fantastic. What was your experience in a dog park? Did you find it was like lovey-dovey all the time, or were there issues that you had to encounter? Because maybe it's just me, because I was a dog walker and I was just in the dog park more with more dogs. Like, I don't know, what was your experience? Did you find it to be fluffy like this, or were there real things happening in that dog park? You guys all know that he's a TV critic, and he mentions that people in the dog park are very much like TV characters, which I have always thought as well. So in my dog park experience, I've always wanted to create a TV show about them, because it would be the juiciest kind of show. The biggest amounts of drama are in these, and it would just be so great. So I was a dog walker in Toronto for 6 years, and part of that I was in a dog walking company, and then a part of that I was an independent dog walker. So I had 2 different dog parks for those 2 different experiences, but it's the one when I was in the company that I think is the funniest dog park. So it was a little bit north of Toronto. That was a big snore. Did you hear that? So it was this dog park that was sort of hidden down a hill and through a forest that you had to go to. And in the middle of the day, it was only ever dog walkers that went there. There was never any dog owners, and it was the same people every single day who would go. So in that park, we had, oh my gosh, we had all the different types of people. I'm not gonna say their names just to kind of protect their identity in case they happen to be watching this, but there was, you know, your classic middle-aged man who would hit on all the younger dog walkers and then move on when he realized that they did not want a piece of that. There was a father-daughter team who would always have way too many dogs. In Toronto, there was 6. That was the maximum amount that you could take, but he always had 8 or 9 for sure that he would squeeze into his van. They all had shock collars on, which he would set off the shock collars just to show us how they worked, which we all obviously got on his case about that, because that's not right. And him and his daughter would always go into the far corner of the dog park and smoke a joint there, which we all also yelled at them for, because at the time it was not legal. Not to mention the fact that they were working and they had 9 dogs to care for. Anyway, that was a little bit ridiculous. There was also this Ukrainian lady who would come into the dog park. She only ever walked tiny dogs. She'd come in, be on the phone the entire time. She'd walk for about 15 minutes in the dog park, and then she'd go into her car with the dogs and she'd sit there on the phone eating her lunch. But we know that she told the owners that they were in the park for an hour. So yeah, there was some characters in that park for sure. There was also definitely normal people like me who were just going about their day and caring for their dogs in the best way possible. So it was a toss-up. There were some characters, some normal people, but it was definitely interesting. Every single time I went to that park, I would ask around what drama had occurred, because we'd have people getting in major fights, whether it was over the dogs or over owners or over this dog walker stealing this client, stealing this client. There was one time, I swear to God, there was a small fire that was set in the dog park because I think it was that father-daughter team, they were smoking and they didn't put out their cigarette properly, and there's wood chips all over the ground in that particular dog park, and they started a small fire. So that dog park, let's just say I was happy to get out of there and move on to a different dog park, because even though it was entertaining, I 100% did not identify with those people. But I would love someday to write a mini series about those people, because it was drama filled. Did I like the book? Yes. Would I recommend it to all my friends? Not really. I think that it is a good base, but I think he should have taken some more time and just dove into it a little bit more, and it could have been a great book. Honestly, I just kept waiting for something big to happen, and then the book just ended. So I think there could have been a little bit more to it, but in general, I did enjoy it. Now I just want to go over our February dog book club book. It is called Lucky Dog Lessons: How to Train Your Dog in 7 Days by Brandon McMillan. I'll leave a link below to Amazon where you can find this. Apart from being the hottest dog trainer in the world, he is also an Emmy award-winning host of the CBS television show Lucky Dog. He's a host of Discovery Channel's Shark Week. Shark Week, guys. He's a host of Shark Week. He has trained animals for more than 300 Hollywood productions and privately worked with the pets of A-list celebrities. So now he saves, trains, and rehomes shelter dogs as family pets. So he knows his stuff, guys. And in this book, he gives tips and tricks on how to train your dog regardless of age, breed, temperament, personality. He gives tips on how to do that. So we're gonna be reading that, and we're gonna be talking about it the last Thursday in February. I'm gonna be posting a video about it. And in that video, I am going to take the tips that he's saying. I'm gonna train my own dogs with it, because Lord knows they need it. We're gonna see if these tips are good or not. So I would love it if you guys also read the book and tried it out so we can compare notes on his tips. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in on this video. Make sure you leave your comments about what you thought of the book below, and get excited for this one because it's gonna be a good one, I think. Thank you guys again. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't, and follow me on Instagram again if you haven't, and I'll see you in a month.